and the funny thing is we were selling so quickly, so fast. I just had to figure this out by necessity. And it wasn't until I kind of put myself into a corner to where I had to figure it out, to where I actually figured it out. Because I was trying to think about how I would scale this product before that, but it wasn't until I actually had to by necessity to where I really figured it out. So I was able to come up with how we were going to do one-on-one leverage fulfillment at scale. And I redid the product, just redid everything about it, and then brought in some new team members. And then we grew pretty quickly to about 600,000 a month.
Welcome everybody to the Rainmaker podcast, and today we've got the ultimate guest. We got the guy who absolutely makes it rain, and Cole Gordon. And what he's going to be talking about today is how he went from 0 to 3 mil a month, making it rain, and becoming the king of high ticket sales and the #1 sales coach in the industry. And it is my pleasure to have Mr. Cole Gordon on. Cole, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast today.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's not waste any time. Let's dive in. So, Cole, how did we get here? How did we go from, where you were to now? Like, walk me through that process from the beginning. Like, how did you even get into the entrepreneurial business in the first place?
Yeah, well, you can let me know how deep you want me to go. But basically, I grew up pretty normal, kind of like white collar family, not really wealthy or tremendously successful, but I had a really, really good childhood. I was the only child, and had really, really supportive parents in whatever I did. And one of the things my parents always told me when I was growing up was, when you grow up, you can be anything you want in the world. And they were really big on, do whatever you want, do whatever makes you happy. And I think that was something I'm really, really grateful for looking back. And I didn't realize how much it affected me. But I, very, very early on, just first, like a lot of entrepreneurs, got into entrepreneurship, really dating or really personal development. I got into because of fitness. So I remember in 9th grade, I got my ass kicked so bad at a wrestling tournament that I went home and just like had one of those moments that I was like, man, I'm never going to get embarrassed like that in front of all my friends and family again.
Yeah.
If you don't know wrestling in high school, it's like you have to go out there and duel like 1v1 somebody else in front of like all your friends and family in your hometown and your gymnasium and all this shit. And when I was a senior, it wasn't as bad. But like when I was a freshman, I was on the varsity team, and I was going out there against like a senior and just getting ragdolled. And so for me, that kind of like gave me all of this pain to start getting into trying to improve my body composition, like put on some muscle and like, exercise some agency over my results that are having in my life. So I started lifting that year, gained 40 pounds, all natural, no steroids, just ate a ton of food, to be honest, and lifted really, really heavy. And, I went from that year being, freshman, I wasn't anything special in football or wrestling. And then the next year, made the varsity team, ended up doing really good, have a great winning record, and progressing pretty far with wrestling. And the reason I tell you that, obviously we're not, this is a business podcast, but the reason I tell you that is because that was sort of the first click in my brain that was like, oh, I can like change my situation.
Right.
And I know that sounds so, it's like now it's like so basic, like, yeah, you could change your situation. But I think so many people go through their lives just, going with the flow and basically just accepting their circumstances opposed to thinking they have influence on those circumstances. So that really got me into nutrition and health and fitness. And that was really what I ended up going to college to major in. And, I had a few other pivotal moments. Like from that, what happened was when I got in college, I was super, like in high school, I kind of got away with being like popular and like the star athlete. But then in college, I was like very awkward and unpopular and kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, not getting any girls. I wasn't, going on any dates or anything like that. So again, I was like, okay, well, I was able to change my situation with this fitness thing. I'm going to try to do it with my social life.
Right.
And yeah, it was really transformative over the course of like 3 to 6 months. I basically turned into like a different person. I remember friends visiting me from college or from high school, and they were like, dude, you totally changed. And how I started dressing was different and interacting was different. And I started to have better relationships and better friendships and started going on dates with girls that I wanted to go on dates with. So that was another thing to where I sort of was able to exercise agency on my situation. And, I was consuming all sorts of random, pickup material and stuff that probably wasn't even like, now I look back on, I'm like, man, but at the time, you know, for a guy who was just so, had so much room for growth, we'll say, in that area of his life, that really, really helped me. So, and then the third thing was, I was like, man, I've been able to change my health and fitness, change my, you know, my dating life and social life. And then the next thing I was like, I wonder if I can apply this to my grades.
Mm.
And I remember reading Stephen Covey's Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. And then
Yes.
right after that, I found an online course on how to get straight A's. It was like called like How to Get Straight A's. It was free.
Mm.
And I took that and went from like a 2.8 student to I never didn't like, I only ripped 3.9s and 4.0s for the
Wow.
rest of the time I was in college. So again, like I was like, I started to realize like, man, these books and like learning, like this is like a thing. Like this is, I mean, it sounds so ridiculous to some people, but for me, I was like, I felt like I had found like the holy grail, you know? And
Mm.
then what had happened was, you know, I sort of maxed out my academics and I was looking at like, and I also started to really develop a lot of self-confidence. So I was looking into like, you know, I was going to school to be nutrition. I could go to med school after that and do, you know, that whole thing, or be a dietitian, which makes like 70K a year in a hospital. I did this internship, and I remember the second day thinking like, there's no way I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Like this just seems awful. Like you're going into a hospital, everybody's sick. You know, you're spending most of your time not even with the patients. You're like charting, and I just was like, I gotta get out of this thing. Like this is not for me. So I did finish college just because, you know, you know, my parents paid for it, and I was really, really lucky for that. And so I, you know, did that out of respect for them. But I knew, I was like, I'm gonna get away from this. And at the time, I had seen so many like health bloggers. Like there was this guy named Michael Matthews, the other guy named John Romanello. I'd follow them, and I could understand kind of like, hey, these guys are like making some money online. And so I didn't know what to do. I was just like, I'm going to try to do this health blogging thing. So I tried to do that. Just basically was a whole year. So I didn't go to med school, even though I was going to get accepted into some. I had applied and was getting you know, all this stuff. So I went to, I took a year, stayed bartending at the college town I was at, which was not the best environment for.
Where was this at?
This is in Athens, Ohio, so
Okay.
OU. And took that year to try to figure this stuff out. And, you know, it just was a year of like a lot of just mental masturbation and procrastination and just not really getting anything done. And then the real pivotal moment for me was I bought Sam Evans' course, Consulting Accelerator, which that like blew my mind at the time. You know, this was back when he was doing the JV with Ty, if people remember
Oh
where that
yeah.
is. And so I got that, and then I was like, oh, okay, like this is so helpful. Like this was like, it was really, really helpful for me. And then I like everybody else in that course was like, okay, I want to do Facebook ads. So
Mm-hmm.
you know, I did an agency, and what happened was I struggled with that for like another year, just total like procrastination. And what happened was I eventually got into a coaching program where there was some real accountability, and I was able to actually get my agency to like 30 grand a month. And then the issue with that was I was contracting out all the work. And then so
Mm-hmm.
when you had the ads expense, the contractor expense, and all this nonsense, I basically was like not making any money. So I sort of like ran out of all my money. I mean, I was just like so inexperienced. I was running the business like a complete idiot. And once I had less than $1,000 in my bank account, I was like, okay, you know, I'm gonna not do this anymore, and I'm gonna get into this high ticket sales thing. Because what I had seen is that like the dude who sold me into that coaching program, I knew he was making like 20, 30 grand a month. And so I was like, and I was like the sales was like the only thing that kind of like somewhat, you know, I felt at the time it came natural, even though I wasn't very good.
Right.
And so I kind of thought in my head, like, oh, I'm really good at this high ticket sales thing. And so that was kind of my plan B. And that came to fruition. And so I got in, I thought I was going to crush it. It was going to be super easy. And I just make some money, then try my agency again. Well, what ended up happening was I was like the worst guy on the team. And I was actually on a really good team too. And so had good coaching, was like the worst guy on the team, but I was also definitely the most committed, the most coachable by far. Like I was really looking at this like I'm just going to become the best in the world at this. Like it wasn't a job, even from day one. And so I really struggled, man. And I was selling real estate agents, financial advisors, and insurance agents. It's a tougher market. And I went from just horrible to after a year, just making a lot of breakthroughs and eventually being really good, probably the best one on the team. And then I left that, did some SEO sales. Like I sold an SEO coaching program, so not SEO sales, but SEO coaching. And then I left that to do traffic and funnels. And so by the time I got to traffic and funnels, I was pretty freaking good. Like I was one of the best guys out there. I think even then, I shouldn't say best, but I was very like I was good, you know.
Right.
And then at TF, I just really had finally the marketing and the ecosystem and the team and the culture and the coaching and all these things to really just realize my potential in that area of my life. And so
Yeah.
by the time I left there, I felt like I had just really the reason I left is because I felt like I wasn't growing and I just had maxed out that skill set.
Yeah,
And
and that's what I want
so,
to talk about. I want to stop there because I
yeah,
want to talk about that because that's kind of where I started to take notice of you. So we have a lot of things that are kind of aligned. So one is Sam Ovens course. You know, that whole mindset program that really shifted my paradigm into like, my identity on like who I could become. Right, the becoming self, that was a game changer for me. And I was wondering, I was like, how had I not learned this information at that time? I was probably 33 to 35, and I'm in Nashville, so I had heard about Taylor and TNF,
yeah,
and I realized that you were here for a little bit of time, right? I think you had just
two
moved
years,
when I
yeah,
first got connected with you,
yeah,
and so I want to talk about that period of time because
sure,
it
yeah,
seems like after you left there is like when you exploded and really took off. So let's talk about being that entrepreneur because everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, but at
hmm
some point and doing a lot of things. Let's talk about how that entrepreneur helped you hone your skills and what you learned about the business of being a leader and numbers and all of that stuff that you learned from being with
yeah.
TNF.
So basically, I think one of the best ways to be mega successful in any industry or anything that you do is really to start off by getting a job. So if you read Mastery by Robert Greene, he talks about really the importance of apprenticeship. And if you look at a lot of people who are very, very successful, they spend time really learning from or being a part of something that's really big and monumental out there. And a lot of the most successful people in any industry or any field usually come from like a small group of people, or it's like a web, to where
Right.
like it's like in the easiest way is like jujitsu. You can almost trace like every black belt and every major gym to smaller and smaller and smaller, a smaller amount to where there's like only a few people, or even like the Gracie family at the top. Like that's one of the easiest examples I can give. But it works
Yeah.
like that in almost all the fields. Like, look at all the people that's been under Bill Belichick
Yeah.
who've gone on to create massive success in the coaching, and coaching football. So with me, what I did, and I kind of knew I was doing this, but man, looking back, it's so much more clear of like the pathway that I took, and really what I'd recommend anybody do is I was in an industry that I was really, really passionate about. That was the first thing. And then within that industry, I found a company that was kind of like mid market, small to mid market size. So they weren't so big that I'd just be like a cog in the wheel, so to speak. But
Right.
they were small enough to where I would be able to work with the founder and work, have a lot of growth potential, see a lot of growth and experience a lot of growth. And but big enough to where I just got in right as they were about to hit scale. Like I got in like around there doing 300 grand a month. They were in a rebuilding phase, and within 6 months we were doing over $1 million a month. So it's like I saw like just such a scale at a triple, and all
Right.
the breakdowns and things we needed to fix, and like the team members that needed to get brought in, and all this stuff. And that was just such a tremendous experience. Like I didn't even realize it at the time, but that was tremendous. And I was able to work with Taylor pretty much like one on one, talk to him like every single day. And so for me, I just grew so much during that time. I understood what an 8-figure company in the space looked like. On top of that, we were servicing all the top people in the industry because they were trying to learn from us. So I was able to get a good scope on like what works in the industry, what doesn't, what funnels are working, what acquisition systems are working, what, just what offers are working. And I just had a great thumb on my pulse of the industry. And so like, I think again, like if I had to give advice to my son or something like that about, replicating what I did, I would be like, find an industry that you're really passionate about. And then from there, find a company in that industry that's small or mid market, like somewhere you can get on the ground floor that's about to hit this scale, to where
Right.
you're going to be able to work with some really key executives and be able to learn, hopefully even in person too, would help out a lot. And then from there, just really try to increase your value and have some upward mobility in that company and get the best mentorship and growth that you can. Because I can't tell you how many examples, like Chamath Papatia, he was really on the ground floor at Facebook. You look at
Right.
all the PayPal mafia, all those people who co-founded PayPal together, they went on to be, pretty much the most successful, many of the most successful people of like all time. Um, even Jeff Bezos had a job before he went and started Amazon, and that those connections and all this experience he built from his job, he carried that over. So I just think some form of apprenticeship like that is very, very key. I talked to a guy, just last week who has 3 to 500 AUM in hotels, and like the deal flow he's doing with hotels and stuff like this, and um, getting returns for his investors and himself is really phenomenal. It's really impressive. Well, he spent 20 years studying under somebody else. And that's how he got all the connections and how he just understood the market. He got all the specialized knowledge and skill set and everything. And then he was able to take that eventually and now be at the top of the game in a new field. So it doesn't mean you
Yeah.
have to do it that way, but it is super, super key. So that's how I viewed it, as just like getting paid to learn. And, look, I probably could have made more money in the short term doing my own business. Maybe, I don't know, I was making a lot. But definitely in the long term, me gaining those skills in the beginning really paid off. So
Yeah.
hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, 100%. And so on that, I kind of want to talk through that whole growth because after you left there, like you were just on the scene, and I was a part of some of the programs back then, and I just watched you just grow and grow and grow until you like disappeared, and then you just came back like you were just like you just had your head down, and you just came back and you just had this different level of aggression to your business, and I'm kind of stuck in that in one of these phases. So I'm curious to know, how you were able to break through these plateaus between like 300K a month, 500K per month. And I'm just curious
Yeah,
on what are those plateaus that you were kind of stuck at in your business to get into 3 million a month, and kind of like what did you have to do, either skill set, mindset, or character trait to kind of break through those
yeah,
milestones,
yeah.
that first,
Well,
100K, then you got to a million and 3 million a month.
yeah. Well, I'll break it down into 5 phases. Okay. So the first one is making yourself rich, right? And really, this is, the making yourself rich is like a kind of a way you can remember it. What you're really doing here is building out your optimal selling system. So you're figuring out what you're selling. The problem is you don't know what the hell you're doing. And the solution is you need to figure out what you're selling, how you're selling it, who you're selling it to, and how you're different, right? And so that's the first thing. So for me, I originally, at least, well, the advantages I had is I was already doing high ticket sales. So I knew I could sell at a high price point, and I knew I could sell.
Right.
And then also I was pretty good at generating my own leads. I was actually really good at that. So that was one of the best things that was one of the things I really was great at as a sales rep, is outbound and generating my own leads too. So I was able to generate leads and close them at a high price point very early on. So like I did like a little initial launch off my social media and did like 70K. Um, and so part of that was because I had that skill set. I was doing sales coaching, right? I just would coach people on sales. Then I was kind of like, okay, the people who I'm going to make the most money from, they have sales teams. So then I relaunched in January and positioned it towards sales teams and did a little bit better. And then after I did that kind of stint in March, right as COVID hit, 2020, I was like, okay, well, I think what really is going to work is doing the recruiting. So I launched again to do the recruiting. And that was really the first time I was like, okay, this is something that works, and there's a lot of demand for. So you see why I kind of had to go through these iterations to sort of figure out like what the market wanted and what they'd respond to. And
Yeah.
particularly too, I knew from the very, very beginning that I needed to find something that would work on paid ads. I just knew that everybody who scales uses paid ads, so I got to find something that works on paid ads. Now, that's not the only way to scale, but back then that was what I was looking for. And the other thing is too, any offer that does scale on paid ads will scale really well other acquisition channels as well. Like there's a reason it works on paid ads.
Right.
So the other thing too is I kind of analyzed the market, and at the time, the only sales trainer that was running ads was doing recruiting, and he was the only person doing recruiting. And I didn't like how he was doing it. I was like, oh, I can change this. I can make the model different. I can charge a different price and really improve upon it. So I launched the recruiting, and from there we started doing kind of consistent, like 100, 150K months. And I was doing everything. I was doing all the sales calls myself. I was doing all the fulfillment myself. I had 2 team members maybe, but I was able to get to 150K a month just with that. And I was doing my own back end sales, which was basically, there was no back end offer. It was just, hey, let's continue working together one-on-one. And so I was just grinding really, really hard, doing everything myself. What really helped me get to that level of revenue, just me for the most part, and an EA and an additional team member, was that I was selling at such a high price point and closing at such a high rate, And so I wouldn't only have to take like 15 sales calls. I'd close like 10 at like 15K, So you see what I'm saying? So like I was just uniquely advantaged in that way. And it was also a lot of timing. And, there wasn't really any other offers out there like that. So once I started doing the recruiting, that's when I started to have to bring in some recruiting staff. And then I finally delegated the sales calls and got off the phone, brought in really kind of a sales guy, hybrid fulfillment guy, like I knew from the beginning he'd be like the COO, CEO of my company. And that's when we started taking off. So I was kind of like 100K a month for a while is an easiest way to think about it, 150 maybe. And then I brought him in, it was like, boom, we were at 400, like super fast. And at that time, all the fulfillment broke, and we also got paid ads working for the first time too. Then all the fulfillment broke. So that's what brings me to phase 2. So phase 1 was make yourself rich, right? Optimal selling system. Figuring out who you're selling it to, how you're selling it, and also figuring out your consistent, repeatable process to generate and close leads. Phase 2 is make your customers rich. So not that you're not focusing on your customers from the very beginning, but usually what happens is when you have that initial liftoff, your product breaks, and you need to figure out how to deliver the same service at a product, deliver a productized service. So basically be able to deliver that at scale. And so and the funny thing is we were selling so quickly, so fast, I just had to figure this out by necessity. And it wasn't until I kind of put myself into a corner to where I had to figure it out, to where I actually figured it out, because I was trying to think about how I would scale this product before that, but it wasn't until I actually had to by necessity to where I really figured it out. So I was able to come up with how we were going to do one-on-one leverage fulfillment at scale. And I redid the product, just redid everything about it, and then brought in some new team members. And then we grew pretty quickly to about 500,000-600,000 a month.
Hey, I just want to break in here for just a couple of seconds. If you're a life insurance agent that wants to go from 0 to 100K per month, I need you to listen up. We have a free course that you can grab right now. The link is in the description for this video. You're going to get over 30 hours of training and deep dive instruction on how you can do this. It is the best performing piece that we have that is absolutely free to life insurance agents to take them from where they are 100K plus every month. Follow these instructions, grab the course. It's called Life Insurance Agent University.
So the big thing that to note there as well is now, having CSMs and doing the account management model that we teach a lot of our clients to do, that's almost like a normal thing in the industry. But you got to remember, like back then, the norm was like group coaching, So I was really one of the first people to do a true like white glove, hands-on, one-on-one fulfillment at scale and scale that past $1 million a month. I'm not saying there wasn't coaching programs with coaches or people who would do onboarding, but generally those people would have like 100 to 150 clients a coach. The way I did it was really built upon that and was unique, I think, for the very first time, at least to my knowledge. I'm sure other people were doing something similar, and it had been around in the SaaS world for a long time before that. So that got me to about 500-600. Then from there, we launched RCA. And I don't recommend getting to 500-600 and launching a new offer. The thing was, I had built a funnel that was really, really high converting. And I knew we would need sales reps for the recruiting eventually too. And so I just happened to have a guy kind of come into my network who I knew would be perfect to really just run that offer. And so we launched that, did 100K the month, first month with that. So I think in January of 2022, or sorry, was it, no, 2021, we did 700 grand. And then from January 2021, when that offer launched, both of those companies just exploded. So, I mean, in March of 2021, we did our first $1 million month. And then, I mean, I think by June, July, we had crossed 1.5 together. And then by November, I think we did like 2 or 2.5. I can't remember which. It was either 2 or 2.5. November might have been 2.5. And so, I mean, you got to think like that was so crazy growth. We were just hiring people so quickly. Everybody was making money. It was nuts. And then, we kind of entered into 2022 at around 2.2 to 2.7, depending on the month. And we basically just didn't grow the entire year. So what happened there was we ran into a bunch of bottlenecks. So phase 2 was make your clients rich. Phase 3 is make your team rich. Okay. And basically what that means is I was doing, at a certain point, I was doing the sales management for both teams. I was doing all the marketing. I was doing all the fulfillment for not both teams, but I was doing the fulfillment for SDA, one of the companies. I was leading the ops. And so I was doing everything myself. And so I had to really build leaders and managers and executive team under me so I could just focus on, the things that were going to drive the needle forward. So that's phase 3 is make your team rich. Phase 4, which we also had to go through in 2021, 2022, is teaching your leaders how to do the same. So really teaching your leaders how to make their teams rich. And really, in other words, that's building middle management. Because what happened very, very quickly, because we grew so fast, is those leaders, I was able to get those leaders up and going and delegate that pretty quickly. Getting them to develop their own executive teams and their own middle management under them, and that middle management be efficient, that was really, really hard. And so that took them a little bit of a learning curve. And that was also not just them, it was how I led them and, just certain mistakes that we made along the way. But once we got that in place, and it freed up their bandwidth, that helped tremendously. And so the final thing that we went through in 2022 was the 5th phase, which I call reinvention. So we started to hit really a cap to where like I had finally kind of gotten out of my time or gotten my time back from all this management I was doing. Then I had that time back and I could put that back into the company in the form of really trying to innovate these new systems. Because what happens is, from that initial liftoff of where you figure out your optimal selling system all the way to like 8 figures and sometimes even beyond 8 figures, multiple 8 figures, you're sort of like this one trick pony to where you're just kind of leveraging that one thing you do really well. Like you have a few ad creatives that work really well. You're kind of feeding the beast with just different variations of that one control ad. You have your one VSL or your one promotion, and you're just like riding that sucker to the top. But eventually it starts to phase off and you sort of need to start re-innovating and figuring out what new things you can add to the marketplace. You're going to be more prolific so that you can drop your CPAs, make your marketing more efficient, and also just get more scale out of your company in general. So there's also a few key things I did in the late 2022 in terms of new promotions that really dropped our CPAs and allowed us to scale both teams even further, which we could then now because we had the right middle management in place, right? So make yourself rich, make your clients rich, make your team rich, make your team's team rich, right? Teach your leaders how to make their team rich, and then that reinvention phase. Those are the 5 phases I identified, and I really took a lot of that from Ready, Fire, Aim, which is written by Mark Ford. Yes. He has a similar kind of structure. So
I'm studying that book right now. So it's like as you're saying these things, I'm like, okay, I read it once and I got it, and now I'm going through it again.
I read that book 8 times.
Yeah, so and I heard you say that. That's why I want to get into that part too. Yeah, because I heard you say that. Were you going to finish something? Go ahead.
To close the loop, 2022, we were basically stuck at 2.5 all year. We finished November. We broke through finally, did 3.1. Then in December did 3.2. I think January, we don't have fully reconciled finances yet. Should be any day now, but I think we ended about 3.4 to 3.6. So it's like finally we kind of went back into, it's like the 2021 was insane growth. 2022 was like no growth at all almost. And just we had to catch up on all our systems, all our management, all our leadership, kind of get some wrong people off the team, get some right people on the team. And so we developed a lot as a company. And we got a lot better. We just didn't really have that growth in the top line. Now we're sort of going back into growth. So that's really the theme of this quarter and this year is growth season for our company. And we're just in a really healthy place. Products are the best they've ever been. The teams are the best they've ever been. So that's pretty exciting. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I'm also studying that book, and it came from you, which was why I was excited, because it's funny how things happen where we were going to do this podcast like last week, and you had some other things that were scheduled in there. But what happens is it allowed me to see a couple things that I was excited to ask you about. And there was two videos particularly that it really inspired me. As one was the books that you read, and so when you talked through those, I thought that was very interesting, and I started buying up some of those. I'm waiting on some of those to come in the mail. But the one that was most profound for me was, I was like, Cole has changed, and it wasn't an external change. It was an internal change. And I'm trying to figure out, like, what was the catalyst from that? And you said you got your time back, which was interesting. But those lessons that you went through, that was the first time that I actually heard you talk about some more personal things and some of the growth that you did on the inside. And I'm just curious on, what that journey was like and how that was kind of sparked, and just kind of walking me through what that process was like.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of changes, are you referring to the video? There's like two of them. So is it the one about the 7 lessons of 2022?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I know what you're saying. Yeah. I mean, man, there was a lot of stuff that changed in 2022. It was such an interesting year. Number one, I had entered into the year 2021. I gained a lot of weight, right? So, as much as our top line grew, I wasn't like obese or anything, but I was way above my standards. So like I lost a ton of weight, and that was tremendously, I was super proud of that. And, it's funny. It's like, I got into I don't know why it took me so long, because I studied nutrition in college. I knew exactly what to do. I just was kind of putting it off. I think the main thing is I had a narrative in my mind that, because I'm a business owner, because I have all this stress, because I'm busy, I can't, that's the reason I am not going to be able to be in the same shape as everybody else. I also think I, quite frankly, had like a little bit of body dysmorphia, to where I thought I was actually leaner than I was. I don't know. I just think I just wasn't looking at the problem. So once I started attacking that, I lost probably 25 pounds pretty fast. And then the last 15, because I've lost about 40, the last 15, I sort of just kind of drug ass a little bit. I was pretty slow, which in a way was good, because I retained a lot of lean body mass, and it was very sustainable the way I lost it. But I do think it took too long. But yeah, I mean, I can go into that, but I lost 40 pounds. That was great. I also, in terms of my social life, in 2022, especially in the beginning of the year, man, I just, and I still even probably struggle with this a little bit, but I just really lived that like monk mode lifestyle, right? So real chill weekends. I'd maybe go have a dinner with some friends. And I had a good network of friends. Like, that wasn't it necessarily. I just didn't do much, would just work constantly and work all the time. And I really started prioritizing my social life more. So I started going on more trips with friends, just integrating more stuff that was, stuff that's kind of like bucket list stuff that I wanted to do that I just wasn't doing and wasn't prioritizing. And just started, even going out a little bit more on the weekends, just hanging out with more friends, seeing people during the week, going on more trips, started dating more. And just had a tremendous amount of fun, which it's funny, like I just had a either or mentality, to where I thought I couldn't have that if I was going to have 8-figure plus 8-figure success. And in reality, nothing could be further from the truth. Like I have a really robust social life and a ton of fun. And it's really integrated with my success in a lot of ways. A classic example is, like, for instance, this weekend, we're flying in, 15 pretty high level, mid 7-figure, 8-figure entrepreneurs. And we're kind of having like an informal mastermind Everybody paid a little bit of money, not to make money, just so that I could essentially use that money. And then I got a box. There was a 28-person box at the Waste Management Open. That's a golf tournament. So we're going to party, have fun there, be able to chill. A lot of people are bringing like +1s and dates. It's a really, really cool vibe if you've never been. Super, super fun. It's on the 16th hole, which is like the only hole you can actually like party and make noise and have, and be wild, almost like kind of like Happy Gilmore style
Yeah.
on any golf course on the in the PGA Tour. And then the day after that, so that was like I basically liquidated that whole thing by just sending an email to just a handful of my top clients. And so that's what we're doing Friday. Friday's the mastermind, Saturday's the open. And then, we have some other stuff, fun stuff planned. I plan like a dinner and, we're going out, getting a table and all this shit. And then the next day, this is not a casual weekend, by the way, but like the next day, as a Christmas gift, I bought my entire executive team tickets to the Super Bowl, which is also in Arizona. So the next day, I brought my entire executive team for Christmas tickets to the Super Bowl. So we're going to be hanging out, doing a whole thing before that, going to the Super Bowl and having some fun, never been before. And then we'll be in bed by, it'll be done early. So I'll be in bed by 8:30, be at work work per usual on Monday. And like, even with that too, it's like on Saturday, I'll probably get up early, get a few hours of work in. Even Friday before this mastermind, get up early, have a few hours of work in. So, you could do a lot of these things and just integrate them with your lifestyle. Now, I'm not saying I'm doing, crazy shit like that every single weekend, but I just think for me, I just had this mindset where it created a lot of success, but I just wasn't enjoying it. And what I found is when I started to make a conscious practice of enjoying it a lot more, I really became a lot more motivated and ran into a little bit less burnout, and don't get me wrong, like I love what I do. I'm not working so that I can go party on the weekends or something like that. I love the work, that's almost my default is work. But I did find that for me, especially, for instance, planning a trip to, like I went to go speak a couple weeks ago and I'm speaking in Cancun. So I figured, hell, I'll just make a trip out of it. I invited a bunch of friends. We got a villa, took a 3-day weekend.
Yes.
Stuff like that. I find like for me, my brain doesn't really turn off from work ever.
Right.
And the only times it really ever does is when I'm doing something and having an experience like that and just can be in the moment, And so to me, I find that stuff rejuvenating, refreshing. It just makes you feel like you have momentum in your life. You're enjoying it. It makes you feel like there's like the success is for a reason. And I'm not saying that, again, the only, I'm not working and grinding and trying to hit my goals in the company so that I can go to a party. Like it's not that. It's just one little extra thing you can add to sort of motivate you a little bit more. Like I still think, the majority, 90% of my motivation comes from the purpose that I have, my love for the game, growth, learning, and really just being able to be 80, 90, 100 years old, whatever it is, close to the end of my life and looking back and being like, man, I just played all out and maxed. I really hit my true fucking potential, in all areas of life, right? And that's what I really want to look back and think of when I'm at that age. But, that true potential, it's not just your business, right? It's your relationships, romantic, and your friendships as well, and the people that you surround yourself with. It's also how you treat your body. You only get one of those. And a sick man only wants one thing, right? And that's to be healthy again, no matter how much money that they have. So, I just think I had a little bit more well-rounded perspective this year. And part of that was a coach that I worked with. It really helped me through a lot of mental blocks and emotional blocks and childhood stuff. And, part of that I think was just having a year where I didn't have a lot of, I didn't make really that much more money in 2022 than I did in 2021. And so because of that, I think I really started to prioritize some other areas of my life while still focusing 100% on my business as well.
Yeah, for sure. And thanks for sharing that, because I feel like sometimes in this business, a lot of the young guys are being forced down their throat. The message that's being forced down their throat is that they got to be in monk mode in order to have success, right? That is only one way, and that you can enjoy things in life. And you do need to work hard. But again, if you don't want to be burnt out, you do need to celebrate some of the small wins, and then, enjoy some of these things with your team. Like you're saying, you're starting to incorporate the successes and the milestones and sharing that with others. And that's really interesting because it reminds me, I was watching a podcast with Shannon Sharp and Chad Ochocinco, and he was asking him why he hadn't gotten married. And he said for the 18 years of his career, football was first and nobody could really accept being second. But now he looks back and he wished that he had let somebody come along and ride with him and enjoy it, because now he has all of these things, but he has nobody to share it with.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And you know, the easiest way to think about it too is like I had a really hard job reconciling like, oh, you know, if I'm out, let's say you do something, let's say you take Saturday off and instead of working, you go do something fun, right? Uh, you know, I had a hard time reconciling, oh, should I like not be doing this fun thing and instead should I be just home grinding all day? And you know, I totally get that mindset because I still will have that. But the way I reconcile it is like you really got to look at what your plan is. Like if you have great 90-day planning, and then you can reverse engineer kind of what you want to get done each month out of that 90 days, like what your key projects are going to be. And then from that, like what you're going to do week to week. And if you're planning your week ahead of time before each week, like on Sunday night, do you plan your entire next 7 days and what projects you want to get done? If you're doing that and your planning is really clear, the only question you have to answer to yourself is like, hey, my projection for this week was to get all of this stuff done, to get this done, this done, this done, this done, this done. Right. My deal with myself is if I get all those things done and I executed the plan, I can spend the rest of my time doing whatever the hell that I want, right? And so there's no guilt in taking an extra day off, right? Or even if you get done by everything on Thursday, taking Friday off. I typically plan pretty aggressively so that, it usually doesn't happen that much. But still, like that's the barometer I use is if you really project out, like, right here, I have my to-do list next to me and I can see like everything I really want to get done this week. And that list isn't going to change. So it's like if I can just knock out all that stuff by the end of the week and hit my KPIs, hit my goals for myself, then I can spend the rest of the time celebrating the great week that I had, And so I think it's as simple as that. I just think that most people, where they really run into trouble is they don't have a plan and they don't know what they should be working on and they don't reverse engineer their goals. So it's just this like sporadic, frantic energy that doesn't progress towards any goal and doesn't get anything done, right? Whereas when you have a lot of clarity, as long as you're getting done the things you need to get done, who cares what you do with the rest of your time?
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. So I guess as we wrap up, my last question is going to be, obviously, most people don't know I'm in Quantum also, and he on the 31st, he shut it down. So I'm curious on, we're in this new space where like kind of one of the OGs, right, where we both came from the Consultant Accelerator program. And that really helped us along the way with launching and expanding in our coaching programs. Where do you see that gap being filled? And then for other people that are saying, so many people during COVID got into the coaching space and the course space that is kind of saturated, feels like it's kind of dying. Where do you see the future of masterminds and the coaching space going into 2024 and 25?
Oh, interesting. Well, so yeah, I mean, in terms of the gap being filled by Quantum, I mean, I don't know if you're trying to like set me up to plug my own mastermind, but I mean, truthfully, I would be lying if I wouldn't recommend our own, which is the 8-Figure Boardroom. And really, when I was actually a part of Quantum, and I enjoy how Sam thinks, and I'm a big proponent of school. I think I was the first investor into school, and we also, not that we were in there like soliciting clients or anything, but like we would get a lot of business from that just by showing up to the events and providing value and stuff. And it's also a great group of people. So, I think that for me, what I saw with the mastermind space, particularly, and the reason I launched our backend mastermind was that either most of the masterminds in the high ticket community were very newbie based. Quantum was one of the higher level ones, but even at that, there was usually only a couple people doing over $1 million a month, maybe like one or two. And, most people like at the higher end doing 200-300. So there was none that was like specifically people from 100K a month to $1 million a month plus, right? And then the other thing was too, so that was the first thing. The high ticket ones were a little bit more focused on beginners, in my opinion. Like there was nowhere for somebody doing 800 grand a month or 700 grand a month to go and really like be able to network with people at that level. So that was the first thing. The second thing was the masterminds that were higher level were a part, like the businesses in there were scattered across 12 different industries, right? There'd be hedge funds, there'd be, am I frozen again? Okay. There'd be hedge funds, there'd be SaaS companies, there'd be real estate professionals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. And so great, there's like 8 or 9 figure people in those masterminds, but like you can't really leave with anything tangible of like, oh, I could just do X, Y, and Z in my high ticket business. So our mastermind, in my opinion, was the first one to really launch that hit those 2 criteria, right? It's high level. So it's it's only 7-figure and 8-figure businesses, even 9-figure businesses, and it's only high ticket. So it's specialized specifically for online service-based businesses that are high ticket. And there's strict revenue requirements. And I would say the median person in the room is 200 to 400 grand a month, right? And we have over 24 people, probably over $1 million a month. So that would be my recommendation of who fills the space, right? And I think that's part of the reason Sam, when he did close it down, recommended us. So that's just my honest answer there. And then in terms of where I see the industry going, I mean, man, like making predictions is like, who knows, right? I think anybody who can sit there and make predictions and think that they know what they're talking about and do that with a lot of certainty is probably not somebody who's very self-aware, you know? But if I have to just throw one in the hat here, I think that it'll be interesting to see where the economy's going. I mean, I definitely think that the demand for income skills and basically people who can gain the skill sets to be able to make more money, whether that's in their current business or starting a new business, that's not going to go away, right? Like college is not going to catch up to that and start teaching people practical ways to start a small business. So that system's really failed. And you have this space, which I think there's going to be an ever-growing demand in, and there's going to be a lot of new people entering into the space. So I think you're going to see a lot more growth on that side. Now, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. When COVID happened, the space really exploded. So why was that? Well, everything was shifting online. It kind of it made that transition quicker. And then on top of that, a lot of people got laid off, or a lot of people couldn't work, or a lot of people were sitting at home. So they were trying to find something to do. And even with people losing their jobs, dating stuff online, fitness stuff online, all of that did really well, even in a time of really what could be considered a lot of a contraction. So stuff really took off. Yes, some people had stimulus tax checks and they were getting money, and maybe there was disposable income there. But man, the space, I'll just tell you, there was people who, including me, took off during that time. Now, there's also people who really struggled if their industry was specifically affected. But man, a lot of things took off. Yeah, I think there's an opportunity for that to happen again. Our space is really propped up on the BizOps space. So what happens is people coming into the market who want to be able to make money online, start a business, start a coaching business, start an affiliate business, whatever they're trying to do, right? It's those people entering into the market that really props up the rest of the market. And then when those people enter into the space, the people who are teaching those people how to do those things, they start to do better. And then the service providers, agencies, sales recruiters, any type of recruiters, any type of service that services those high ticket kind of coaching, biz op type businesses, they start to do better. And then also there'll be more health coaches to start to pop up, dating coaches, or coaches in variety of different niches. And then also, generally too, I don't know in a recession though this time, last time, you couldn't go to the gym. So I think health coaching and online health coaching, even online dating coaching, did a lot better, right? Because there wasn't in-person interaction. I think it'll be interesting to see with a recession this time. I think that those non-ROI offers could suffer a little bit, But then I also think any sort of business opportunity or business growth or anything lead gen could continue to do really well. But again, if the contraction is bad enough, or if there's issues with China and Russia and there's a lot of fear, the contraction might be so much so to where the velocity of money is going to slow to a point to where, yes, there is more people getting laid off and coming into the market, but it's kind of counterbalancing with the contraction. But you also got to remember, in a recession, CPMs go down. And so, one of the biggest things with our market our industry is it's really ads and paid traffic driven, period, right? There's certain people who, yes, they do have a big YouTube channel, or they have other ways of acquiring clients. But generally, I mean, if people are winning on paid media, the entire industry is doing well. So CPMs, if we have a recession, that's going to drop, right? Inventory is going to go up, which is going to make, and if you have a higher velocity of people going into the market because they're looking for other ways to create an income online because they just got laid off and now they want to do something themselves, take control, that could be an opportunity. But again, if the contraction is bad enough, it kind of might counterbalance out. What I will say, businesses run properly in this industry, you could be looking at a 40 to 60% profit margin. So I think the companies that are going to take the worst hit are obviously any sort of investors, real estate investors that are directly impacted by the interest rates. On top of that, you've already seen tech companies with lower margins, them having to do layoffs. A lot of e-com D2C companies have much, much lower margins as well. You could see that. So I think those are the ones that are going to get crunched first before our industry. And I think our industry is looking at potentially a growth opportunity or, kind of like sort of there's growth on one side with more people entering the market. But because of the contraction, slow of money exchange, you kind of have a counterbalance. Or hell, maybe we have a net negative and we see a decrease of 10 or 20%, but we'll be in a much better position than a lot of other companies. And, a lot of bad companies will get weeded out, but the good ones are going to remain. So that was I just sort of rambled there big time. But, hopefully that made sense. I'm like, I need to get a coffee or something.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Cole, man, this has been great. I definitely learned a lot and excited about following you on your journey and being a part of it, being in some of your programs. Shout out to Brian Moncada. The video that he did of your event is the one thing that reminded me, rekindled my fire. So it was that video. So, hopefully, like I think I sent you a DM saying that video should probably get you at least 10 sales because it was done. It was great. If you haven't seen it,
it was phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
You should really be in that mastermind.
Yeah, I am. I'm in talks with Igor because I just had a baby, so I had to kind of put some things on pause. But I was in the mastermind before already. So, because I think you had one in Nashville. And then you had one in Arizona, I think. So, yeah. So I've been watching closely and been in talks with Igor. He was my account manager before. So we're going to get things rolling here over the next day or so. But again, man, I'm so grateful for you being on and appreciate the leadership that you've taken because I think that the industry is in good hands with that torch being passed on to you. And I'm excited to learn from you to grow my business, but also to see you break through some barriers. And if I got a feeling you'll probably be that first $100 million consulting company right out with no other things going on that I'm excited to witness and be a part of. So Cole, as we wrap up, man, thanks so much again. If people are looking to, be a part of your mastermind or they want to grow their sales team, where can they find you and reach out to you?
Yeah, for any B2B stuff, I would go to closers.io. If you want information on the mastermind, you can maybe just DM me on Instagram or, there's some information on the site. Any sort of B2C stuff, like if you want to learn sales and get certified, my Instagram is a good place for that at Cole Thomas Gordon.
Awesome. Well, Cole, man, thank you so much for spending time with me. And this is the Rainmaker Podcast. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, brother.
Hey, I know you just enjoyed this video, but I've got a great one for you right here. Make sure you go ahead and click it right now and get a ton more of our free information that's going to show you how to go from 0 to 100K per month.